Musical nationalism refers to the use of musical ideas or motifs that are identified with a specific country, region, or ethnicity, such as folk tunes and melodies, rhythms, and harmonies inspired by them. History. As a musical movement, nationalism emerged early in the 19th century in connection with political independence movements, and was characterized by an emphasis on national musical elements such as the use of folk songs, folk dances or rhythms, or on the adoption of nationalist subjects for operas, symphonic poems, or other forms of music. As new nations were formed in Europe, nationalism in music was a reaction against the dominance of the mainstream European classical tradition as composers started to separate themselves from the standards set by Italian, French, and especially German traditionalists. More precise considerations of the point of origin are a matter of some dispute. One view holds that it began with the War of Liberation against Napoleon, leading to a receptive atmosphere in Germany for Weber's opera Der Freischütz and, later, Richard Wagner's epic dramas based on Teutonic legends. At around the same time, Poland's struggle for freedom from Tsarist Russia produced a nationalist spirit in the piano works of Frédéric Chopin, and slightly later Italy's aspiration to independence from Austria resonated in many of the operas of Giuseppe Verdi. Countries or regions most commonly linked to musical nationalism include Russia, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Romania, Scandinavia, Spain, UK, Latin America and the United States. Poland. Frédéric Chopin was one of the first composers to incorporate nationalistic elements into his compositions. Joseph Makler states, Poland's struggle for freedom from Tsarist rule aroused the national poet in Poland. Examples of musical nationalism abound in the output of the Romantic era. The folk idiom is prominent in the mazurkas of Chopin. His mazurkas and polonaises are particularly notable for the use of nationalistic rhythms. Moreover, during World War II the Nazis forbade the playing of Chopin's polonaises in Warsaw because of the powerful symbolism residing in these works. Stanislaw Moniuszko has become associated above all with the concept of a national style in opera. Moniuszko's opera and music as a whole is representative of 19th-century Romanticism, given the extensive use by the composer of arias, recitatives and ensembles that feature strongly in his operas. The source of Moniuszko's melodies and rhythmic patterns often lies in Polish musical folklore. One of the most visibly Polish aspects of his music is in the forms he uses, including dances popular among upper classes such as Polonaise and mazurka, and folk tunes and dances such as Kujawiak and Krakowiak. Henryk Wieniawski was another important composer using Polish folk melodies. He wrote two popular mazurkas for solo violin and piano accompaniment. Norway. Edvard Grieg was an important Romantic-era composer whose music helped establish Norwegian national identity. Finland. Jean Sibelius had strong patriotic feelings for Finland. He composed Finlandia. Sweden. Hugo Alfvén studied at the Music Conservatory in his hometown, Stockholm. In addition to being a violinist, conductor, and composer, he was also a painter. He is perhaps best known for his 5 symphonies and 3 Swedish rhapsodies. Romania. George Enescu is considered Romania's most important composer. Amongst his best-known compositions are his 2 Romanian rhapsodies and his violin sonata No. 3, Op. 25. Hungary. Beacutele Bartók collaborated with fellow Hungarian composer Zoltán Kodály to document Hungarian folk music, which they both incorporated in their musical pieces. Zoltán Kodály. Zoltán Kodály studied at the Academy of Music in Hungary and had an interest in Hungarian folk songs and would often take prolonged trips to the Hungarian countryside to study the melodies which were then incorporated into his music compositions. Spain. Isaac Albéniz Manuel de Falla Enrique Granados composed his work Goyescas based on the etchings of the Spanish painter Goya. Also of a national style are his danzas españolas and his first opera María del Carmen. Joaquín Rodrigo Joaquín Turina. Mexico. A nationalistic renaissance in the arts was produced by the Mexican Revolution of 1910 to 1920. Álvaro Obregón's regime, inaugurated in 1921, provided a large budget for the Secretariat of Public Education, under the direction of José Vasconcelos, who commissioned paintings for public buildings from artists such as José Clemente Orozco, Diego Rivera, and David Alfaro Siqueiros. As part of this ambitious program, Vasconcelos also commissioned musical compositions on nationalistic themes. One of the first such works was the Aztec-themed ballet El Fuego Nuevo by Carlos Chavez, composed in 1921 but not performed until 1928. Manuel M. Ponce. Manuel M. Ponce was a composer, educator and scholar of Mexican music. Among his works are the lullaby La Rancherita, Scherzo Mexicana composed in the style of sones and huapangos, Rhapsodía Mexicana, No. 1 based on the Jarabe Tapatio, and the romantic ballad Estrellita. Carlos Chavez. Carlos Chavez was a Mexican composer, conductor, educator, journalist, and founder and director of the Mexican Symphonic Orchestra and the National Institute of Fine Arts. Some of his music was influenced by indigenous Mexican cultures. A period of nationalistic leanings initiated in 1921 with the Aztec-themed ballet El Fuego Nuevo, followed by a second ballet, Los Cuatro Soles. In 1925, United Kingdom. Joseph Parry was born in Wales but moved to the United States as a child. In his adulthood, he travelled between Wales and America, and performed Welsh songs and glees with Welsh texts in recitals. He composed the first Welsh opera, Blodwen, in 1878. Edward Elgar, best known for the Pomp and Circumstance marches. Charles Villiers Stanford. Stanford wrote 5 Irish rhapsodies. He published volumes of Irish folk song arrangements, and his third symphony is titled The Irish Symphony. In addition to being heavily influenced by Irish culture and folk music, he was particularly influenced by Johannes Brahms. Alexander Mackenzie. Mackenzie wrote a Highland ballad for violin and orchestra, and the Scottish concerto for piano and orchestra. He also composed the Canadian Rhapsody. In his life, Mackenzie witnessed both the survivals of Jacobite culture and the Red Clydeside era. His music is heavily influenced by Jacobite art. Ralph Vaughan Williams. Vaughan Williams collected, published, and arranged many folk songs from across the country, and wrote many pieces, large and small scale, based on folk melodies, such as the Fantasia on Greensleeves and the 5 variants on Dives and Lazarus. Vaughan Williams helped define musical nationalism, writing that the art of music above all the other arts is the expression of the soul of a nation. United States. Aaron Copland. Ironically, Copland composed Mexican music such as El Salón Mexico in addition to his American nationalist works. Edward MacDowell. MacDowell's Woodland Sketches, Op. 51 consists of 10 short piano pieces bearing titles referring to the American landscape. In this way, they make a claim to McDowell's identity as an American composer. Ukraine. In Ukraine, the term music nationalism was coined by Stanislav Lydkovich in 1905. The article under this title is devoted to Mykola Lysenko, who is considered to be the father of Ukrainian classical music. Lydkovich concludes that Lysenko's nationalism was inspired by those of Glinka in Russian music, though Western tradition, particularly German, is still significant in his music, especially instrumental. V. Rabowski assumes that Stanislav Lydkovich himself could be considered a significant nationalistic composer and musicologist, thanks to his numerous composition under Ukraine-devoted titles as well as numerous paper devoted to use of Ukrainian folk songs and poetry in Ukrainian classical music. Inspiration by Ukrainian folklore could be observed even earlier, particularly in compositions by Maxim Berezovsky, Dmytro Bortniansky, and Artem Vedel. Seaman Hulik Artemovsky is considered to be the author of the first Ukrainian opera. Lysenko's traditions were continued by, among others, Kyrylo Stetsenko, Mykola Leontovich, Jakov Stepovy, Alexander Koshets, and later, Levko Revutsky. At the same time, the term nationalism is not used in Ukrainian musicology. Moreover, the article music nationalism by Lydkovich was prohibited in the USSR and was not widely known until its publication in 1999.